Species. Unite.
The truth is that in between all of those wonderful events was huge debt, maxing out 20 different credit cards and absolutely annihilating my credit, moving from that little half-acre backyard into where we are now in Santa Clarita, refinancing the house 5 times, having people show up in the middle of the night to repo our cars, the bank trying to take the house, my parents doing literal intervention saying, Ellie, stop your nonsense.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Novogratz. This is Species Unite. We have a favor to ask. If you liked today's episode and you have a spare minute, could you please rate and review Species Unite on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts? It really helps people to find the show. This conversation is with Ellie Laks. Ellie is the founder of The Gentle Barn. The Gentle Barn is a sanctuary that houses and heals some of the most traumatized animals around. And in turn, those animals heal the humans who come there. It's a pretty remarkable place. The Gentle Barn started out on half an acre in Ellie's backyard, and it grew to many acres and multiple locations. There's one in California, one in Tennessee, and a third in Missouri. Ellie, it is so good to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't you just tell us a little bit about, who you are, what you're doing?
I'm Ellie Laks. I'm the founder of the Gentle Barn Foundation, which is a national organization that takes in animals that have nowhere else to go because they're too old, too sick, too lame, or too scared to be adoptable. We put them through a very extensive rehabilitation, and once happy and healthy, we give them sanctuary for the rest of their lives and then partner with them when they're ready to heal people with the same stories of trauma and connect people to the love and magic of animals. So we're open to the public on Sundays. We host private tours, school field trips, birthday parties, and our legendary cow hug therapy sessions where people can come and find hope and healing for themselves next to our giant, gentle giants.
I follow a lot of sanctuaries and people who are helping animals all over the world. I had this awareness of you guys, and I've known about you for a long time, but I didn't know much until last week when I read your book. And I know that your book is about the first 10 years for the Gentle Barn, and you've been doing this for close to 25, right?
Yeah.
But the book really sets the stage. When I got your book, I was expecting to read a book, like a beautiful book about animals and setting up a sanctuary. I had no idea that your book was actually about human trauma, healing, all the layers and layers, and like the brutal honesty and the humor. There's so much humor in this book. I was telling my parents about it, and I was telling them about when you were married to your first husband and you started slowly bringing all these animals home. And what really broke everything is that you brought a cow home. They were looking at me like I was crazy because I so related, right? Like, well, of course she kept the cow. And so that, I really want to talk about those early years and how it all started because I'm still kind of living in them right now. So can you go like way back and start there?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, the book, as you know, starts in my early childhood where I was going through the struggles and challenges of growing up, and animals were always there to save me. So from the time I was 7, I always said when I grew up, I was going to have a big place full of animals and show the world how beautiful they are. And I procrastinated because I had absolutely no idea what the first step would be to start something like this. So it was an idea, it was a fantasy, it was a dream, it was somewhere that I lived in my mind, but I didn't know how to actually make it a reality. And it wasn't until I discovered a petting zoo and started bringing animals home that were dying, filling up my little half-acre backyard. And before we knew it, I had started the Gentle Barn. And it's really ironic because my first husband, and I kid you not, our first date was he wanted to take me out, and I said, I'm sorry, I can't go out because I have a litter of parvo puppies I'm trying to keep alive. And he said, well, why don't I just come over and help you? So that was our first date. in the puppy room with a bunch of parvo puppies, injecting sub-Q fluids, wiping their noses, cleaning up their diarrhea. And he spent a couple hours and then he left. And I thought, okay, well, I'm never going to see that guy again. And I could not believe when he called the next day and came back for more.
So you thought he was in, right? I mean, he was in the beginning.
I was like, okay, so he gets me. He knows who I am. It's very obvious what my priorities are, and he's in for the ride. And so when I went from dogs and cats to goats, chickens, and pigs, I never thought that that was going to be a problem. And he started grumbling with every new animal that I brought in. And I was like, well, what do you care? I'm cleaning up after them. I'm feeding them. Like, it doesn't need to infringe on your life, but like, please indulge me this, because this has been my dream since I was a small child. And the grumbling was nominal in the beginning, but it definitely got louder and louder and louder until I found this cow that was going to be slaughtered, and I was able to go door to door and raise the funds for her rescue. And I finally orchestrated her arrival from Washington State down to California to my backyard. And I was so happy. My whole life led to this moment where I was going to get my first cow. I mean, I couldn't be happier. I was walking on air, and he found out, and he was like, absolutely not. I was baffled. I was like, well, I mean, we got chickens and goats and sheep and pigs and horses. What's one more cow? And I guess that was his breaking point. And he just stood up and was like, it's the cow or me. So the cow came in the next day.
That's another thing, like a whole nother layer of your book. There's so many just human lessons in there, right? And one that you demonstrate so incredibly well is what persistence really means. Starting with when you got your very first goat, where you went like and sat vigil for 11 days until the petting zoo owner would give her to you. And like with your baby, and you just sat in the petting zoo. But you must have known that must have been some sort of turning point, I'm assuming, in terms of this is my mission.
Here's how I would sum it up. I think there's a song in each of us that we were born to sing. And I think that each of us is here for a very specific reason, with lessons that we're going to learn, but also contributions that we're going to share with the world. And most of us, I think, kind of, get swept up in the river of life, right? At a young age, we know who we are, but then, school takes over, and homework and after school sports and demands of the family, and then high school and then college. And before we know it, we're living a life that we never intended. We're living a job that is not our dream. And we're going, oh my God, how did we get here? And why am I so depressed and filled with anxiety? Well, it's because we're living lives that were never intended for us. So for me in my journey, and, I don't mean to sound so flippant with my husband, like it's a cow or me, okay, goodbye. The truth is that we're still in touch because he's the father of my child. And there have been many times where I've told him, I'm sorry I wasn't a better wife. I'm sorry that I couldn't put you first. But the truth is that in that moment, it wasn't just a choice between a husband and a cow. It was a choice between my dream, my purpose, my destiny, my soul, my happiness, versus sacrificing all of those things for someone else. And I literally thought that if I gave up, I had come so close. I'd filled my half-acre backyard with all these animals. I was on the track finally to the life that was meant for me. And I knew in that moment, if I gave it up for him, it felt like I would die. And so I think those moments are waiting for each of us, where we're in denial and we're taking care of everybody else but ourselves. And then there's these moments where we have a choice, where we can once again let ourselves be the last priority and take care of everyone else, or we can once and for all say, no, I am going to die if I don't choose this for myself. And we just choose it, even though it's going to hurt all those around us. And that was that moment for me. It was oxygen. The Gentle Barn had become my oxygen, and I could not give it up. As much as I wanted to be a good wife, I couldn't do it.
I was one of those kids too, who I grew up, I was a middle of 7 kids with a lot of chaos, and animals were my safe space. They were like the one thing that made me feel safe, really, and okay. And I think when you're one of those kids, and you certainly were, you know something bigger, right? Like just intuitively. When you have that awareness or that knowing, yeah, it makes it even a bigger mission in the sense of you already knew all that was already all in you. So you knew like if you just kind of followed the thread, hey, you sit vigil for 11 days until you get this goat. It's the beginning of a thread. And your thread brought you to this massive life who not only has healed thousands upon thousands of animals, but thousands upon thousands of human beings. But I think what you're saying and what I have found in other ways is when you do follow that kind of thread, that's where all the magic lives.
It is the magic. It's we get presented with these opportunities to really define who we are and set the course for the rest of our lives. And when we're brave enough to take the leap, magic happens, like you just said. And with Mary the goat at that abusive petting zoo, I think in that moment, I wasn't thinking, okay, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to rescue her. And then I'm going to rescue so many more. And then I'm going to have the gentle barn. Like, I don't think I saw that far ahead. I just, up until that point, what we do in our lives is we gather regrets, right? Because we're always presented with these choices and sometimes we take them and sometimes we don't. And when we don't, we look back and we gather regrets. And I think in that moment with Mary, and the owner was saying, no, you can't have her. And I knew she was going to die. I could have left that patting zoo, but then that goat Mary would have been another regret. And I looked her in the eyes and I was like, no, you're not going to be one of my regrets. You're going to be the time that I say yes.
Going back to those early days when you were the original Gentle Barn at your house, and you're bringing home all these animals and then you bring home the cow. Will you tell the story of like where it went from there?
With the cow? Well, first of all, I've chosen, so I might as well make this as beautiful as it can be. And second of all, out went the husband with the paycheck. Now I got to bring in some donations. So I'm like, I better open this to the public and get people to support me. And so then I opened, and the support from the community was really, really beautiful. It was such a, to use your word, magical experience for me to have something in my mind for so long and then to actually do it and to see that it was just as magical in real life as it was in my head. It was thrilling.
Well, that's what I was thinking this morning because we talked last week and I was saying, I really want to hear some stories about some of these animals. I was thinking this morning, wow, she's been doing this for 24 years. And I bet those stories, because when you're doing something like this with this much healing and grace and magic in it, it never gets old. Like I can't imagine you're ever like, oh, another cow story. Oh, another goat story. It's like
Never.
every story is like incredible, right?
Yes, every animal story is incredible. Every recovery is such a blessing to watch. And then every story of every person that comes in and heals beside these animals. It's like watching a miracle every day. It's really remarkable. And I remember, as I wrote in the book, I had that very first group of boys from a probation camp coming into the Gentle Barn. And here it was, my dream in full color reality. Like, oh my God. And I had this moment of doubt, like, maybe it was wonderful in my head, but like, are these kids going to laugh at me? Is it going to be an epic fail? Are the animals going to be dangerous? Is someone going to get hurt? Are they going to call me ridiculous? Like in the moment of truth, you go, oh God, what have I done? And I just had to kind of hold my breath and let them come in and just do it. There was resistance in the beginning, right? They didn't want their sneakers to get dirty. They didn't want their t-shirts to get dirty. They didn't want to seem foolish in front of their peers. So they didn't want to be the first one to hug the cow. But, I hung in there and I, with gentle persuasion, got them to finally embrace and hug these animals. And they cracked wide open. And then watching them become so open and vulnerable and really be able to see who they were, where who they were was so guarded when they got off the bus. Oh my God, it was so beautiful. And they came in, so defensive, no eye contact, but then they left hugging me goodbye and kissing the animals on their way out and laying on the floor with pigs, giving them belly rubs and rocking the chickens in their arms. And God, it was just so beautiful. It was so beautiful. And now, almost 25 years later, it's just as precious. It's just as exciting. Like, we can't get enough.
Did that all happen in the first time they came? Like that was all in one, like, I don't know if it's called a session, but one afternoon?
Yeah, yeah, it happened that very first time, that transformation. And then later, several years later, we actually partnered with the Department of Children and Family Services, and they came in not just to bring their kids to us, but also to do a year-long study. And so they picked a whole bunch of kids that were on medication, disruptive in the classrooms. They had to be homeschooled. They had all of these problems, and they weren't making traction in traditional therapy at all. And so they entered these kids in our year-long program, and they had a whole set of questions in the beginning to kind of see how they were doing, and then the same set of questions in the middle, and then at the end of the program. And they reported that we do in 2 hours what it takes them 7 months to do. So in other words, in regular traditional talking therapy, it takes 7 months to get these kids to open up and start talking and be vulnerable. And that happens at the Gentle Barn in 2 hours.
Then you started to grow. How did that growth go? Was it fast?
The growth was slow and painful. And I think growth is always slow and painful. I just really do. I mean, if you're the person that wins the big lottery, then maybe it could be quick and really exciting. But for the rest of us, growth is slow and painful. And so I had started in my backyard. Out went the husband. I'm trying to figure out how to fund it, how to get people to support us. I opened it up. Volunteers started trickling in, and I started creating like this little community. And then a wonderful volunteer came in who we clicked right away. And he started helping me in the barnyard. But then afterwards, he started getting vans to go around to 6 different Whole Foods and bring in the fruits and vegetables for the animals. And then I discovered that he was in marketing and sales. So he started helping me in the office. And then eventually he got a seat on the board and started helping us with fundraisers. And a year later, we fell in love. And that's Jay Weiner, co-founder of the Gentle Barn, who now has taken me from a little half-acre backyard with a handful of animals to a national organization located in California, Tennessee, and Missouri with about 200 animals, over 60 staff, and with a global reach. So that was, Jay is my knight in shining armor, and he came in and just kind of exploded the whole thing. But I make it sound really easy and wonderful. The truth is that in between all of those wonderful events was huge debt, maxing out 20 different credit cards and absolutely annihilating my credit, moving from that little half-acre backyard into where we are now in Santa Clarita, refinancing the house 5 times, having people show up in the middle of the night to repo our cars, the bank trying to take the house, my parents doing literal intervention saying, Ellie, stop your nonsense. You can live in Culver City in an apartment and be a school teacher. And I'm like, have we met? Like that, I would rather die than do that. Everyone in our life saying, Ellie, get rid of these bloody animals, get a real life. Don't come to me when you're homeless. All this stuff. The truth is, I don't know if it's so wonderful. I think it takes a modicum of insanity. I think you have to be a little bit insane to do something like this, because any rational person would see that they're broke, they're done. Let's call it quits. And Jay and I were like, we can't stop. We can't give up. We can't do it. And we just didn't. And here we are today. But I don't think that takes courage. I think that takes a little insanity.
It probably takes both, right?
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about earlier with the persistence. Like you just did not quit ever.
I would sit down in those moments and go, okay, if we did quit, what would I do? And I literally could not think of one other thing that I could do. Like, I think that if I could be like, oh, okay, I'll go bag groceries, or, oh, I'll get my psych degree and become a therapist. Like, I think if I could have found any other thing to do, I might have done it. But I could not think of one single solitary thing that I could do but this. So I had to hang on for dear life.
I think when you're witnessing that level of kind of miracles and healing on a daily basis, it would seem really mundane to go get a regular job. I mean, your days are spectacular, even when they're really hard, I would imagine. Will you talk about some of the animals? Can you start with Buddha?
I could talk about Buddha all day long. So Buddha was my very first cow. And I had never had a cow before, but I instantly loved her, of course. She had red, fluffy fur and a white face and giant teddy bear ears and huge eyes that you could literally drown in, with long white eyelashes and a beautiful blonde ringlet tail. And she was like a fairy tale creature. And I loved her instantly. Buddha knew who she was. She knew what she wanted. She was not a little defenseless animal that I saved. She was clearly there to save me. And she taught me to meditate. She taught me to ground and center myself. She taught me how to open these young men and women that were coming to the Gentle Barn and how to help them be vulnerable. Um, she did every single solitary field trip, tour, group, open to the public Sunday with me for 13 and a half years. Over the course of her life, she gave out 300,000 hugs. And watching her work, I mean, she wasn't some animal that I was taking care of that like I trained to do this. She was this matriarch, this Buddha that was there not only to raise me, teach me, heal me, and show me how to do my work, but to really heal people in a very, very, very deep way. She is the founder of cow hug therapy. She invented it. She put it on the map. And to watch her work where people would come really hurting people. I mean, these are kids in foster care. These are families in domestic violence shelters, homeless shelters. These are people that like the hurting of the hurting. And they would come in and maybe they were used to being around animals. Maybe they weren't, but I would usher them to Buddha. She had to be the first. And through gentle persuasion, get these people to kind of put their heads down on her shoulder, close their eyes, breathe in and out, stop talking, and really kind of ground and center with Buddha. And Buddha would take her neck and wrap her neck around these people, and me, by the way. I mean, she did that like her second day at the Gentle Barn. But then she started extending it to other people where she would wrap her neck around these people and literally hold them while they sobbed into her fur. And she wouldn't let go until they were complete and ready. It was remarkable to watch her work. And she was a real true partner.
And a
And
healer.
she paved the way. She paved the way for the work that we do at the Gentle Barn, but also allowing other matriarchs to come in, other cows, other animals to step up and do that work as well, because she really showed me who these animals are and what they're capable of. And so she set the tone for so many other animals to come in and do the same work.
That started with you, right? You were the first person she hugged. And then you knew she had this gift, or this, she was this healer.
Yeah. So she had just arrived and, told me her name, and then she settled in, and we had our first open to the public Sunday where, with every new animal, you're like, okay, are they going to be scared of people? Are they going to be aggressive? Am I going to have to, protect her from people? How is this going to go? And that first open to the public Sunday, people came in. I was leading them on a tour, and Buddha not only did not run away, she inserted herself into that crowd, laid down, and beckoned them to hug her. And I was like, so that was the first time where I was like, wow, she is no ordinary cow. I got to really pay attention here. She's remarkable. Um, and not only just remarkable, but very intentionally knowing the work that we did at the Gentle Barn. She wasn't just like, oh, she's in my backyard, so she's tolerating people hugging her. No, she was orchestrating it. She was leading the sessions. She was very deliberate in understanding the work that we do for humanity at the Gentle Barn, and she was taking part. So after that first open to the public Sunday, I would go out in the evenings before bedtime and kind of check on everybody, make sure that they were okay. And I counted all the chickens and turkeys on their roosts, and I tucked the pigs into bed with blankets, and I gave the goats and sheep and horses treats. And then I was making my way back to the house, and Buddha was the closest to the gate. And so I kind of walked over to her and kind of pat her on the head. And something made me stop. She was asking me for more. She was beckoning me to stay with her. So I sat down next to her, and just her softness and her warmth was kind of pulling me in. And so for whatever reason, I kind of leaned back against her, and she wrapped her neck around me and held me. And I was so incredibly stunned by that act of compassion and nurturing from her that, and I wasn't feeling sad, or I didn't think I was feeling sad, but all of a sudden with that kindness, I just let loose all of the stress of running the gentle barn by myself and raising a son at the same time and coming up with money. And I, I didn't know it was there. And it was like, I just kept crying and sobbing on her shoulder as she held me. And that hug became a nightly ritual where I couldn't even sleep without getting one of her hugs. She hugged me every single solitary night, and I kind of let go of the day and let go of my to-do list and let go of the challenges and just put everything on pause while I was in present time with her. And it was in those early days of those hugs where I was like, I can't be the only one needing this. Humanity is hurting at large. I know there's other people that need this. I have to bring them to her.
And for the other cows that have come after Buddha, and how did they have to learn how to hug? Like, how did that go down?
Once I saw who Buddha really is and didn't see her as like a cow, if you will, and realized that she's a hugging saint, then every subsequent cow, I basically saw that possibility inside them. So they would come in and we would put them through the rehabilitation program, physically and emotionally healing them. And once they were safe, I would just wait for them to be ready. And they all stepped up just like Buddha did. They all stepped up and want to be hugged.
And for people who don't know, when you say, and the cows come in and have to be rehabilitated, will you talk a little bit about your animals before they get to you, like, and where they come from and how bad off a lot of them are?
Yes, our cows are rescued from slaughter. They're rescued from dairies. They're rescued from the meat industry. And they come in very, very traumatized. The worst of the worst has happened to them. So if they're babies, they were taken away from their moms, put into veal crates where they can't move, no nourishment, no companionship, nothing to live for. Most of them die within days. The ones that are able to survive till 8 weeks are sent to slaughter to be turned into veal. The grown-ups that we rescue, the mothers, are the ones who either inside dairies have had their babies taken away every single solitary year. By the time they're so emotionally and physically destroyed, they're sent to slaughter. Or they're cows from the meat industry who the same thing. Every year they're impregnated. Every year their babies at some point are taken away from them while they scream bloody murder. The babies are slaughtered and the moms are impregnated again. So this is their life. And it's just suffering from beginning to end. And they see the absolute worst of humanity. The humanity that's willing to take their babies away while they're screaming and pleading for mercy. So when they come into the gentle barn, they only know one version of humanity. And so they are very scared. They are very ill and sick because that emotional suffering obviously takes a toll on the body. And the first thing we do is put them through a 30-day quarantine where, number one, we have to make sure that they're healthy and address any illnesses before we integrate them into our herd, because we don't want them to bring any diseases from those dairies and slaughterhouses into our existing herd. So we keep them in quarantine where we're taking fecal samples of their poop to make sure that they don't have any parasites. We're giving them supplements, Santa Clarita algae superfood in their water to boost their immune systems. We're giving them soft bedding. We're giving them shelter so they can just, at the very least, have the basic comforts that all us humans enjoy. Clean water, fresh food, nice shelter. They're warm in the winter, cool in the summer. We're giving them back the basics.
Which they've never had, right?
They've never had. Nobody's hurting them. Nobody's torturing them. They have just the basics, right? Then, obviously, if they're sick, in addition to the Santa Clarita and nutritional supplements we put in their feed and water, there's vet care. Most of the cows, because they're so absolutely terrified, it's this balance where we're trying to gain their trust while at the same time healing them physically. And if we do invasive things with a veterinarian, we're losing trust. We try with everything that we can to heal them non-invasively so that while they're healing, we're also gaining trust. But I mean, there are times where obviously we have to get the vet out. So we use energy healing so we can heal them without touching them. We have musicians come in and play violins, pianos, guitars, sound healing, sound bowls. We have staff and volunteers taking shifts all through the day and all through the night, meditating with them, reading out loud to them, singing to them. We're trying to give them as much good, healing, loving energy as we possibly can without actually touching them, because they're not ready for us to be near them. Every visit, we leave cookies. And once they discover the cookies and realize that we leave cookies every visit, then they start anticipating the cookies, which very quickly leads to us being able to hand them cookies, which over time leads to us being able to pet them, which over time leads us to be able to hug them, and allows them to see that we're a different kind of human, and that humans can be kind and the world can be good. Once they get past the 30-day quarantine and we're able to be near them, then if necessary, we add acupuncture, massage therapy, chiropractic, and of course, energy healing and animal communication are part of the whole thing. And then they get to join our herd and have the wisdom for cows who have been through it, right? So the cows that have been here already, they get to share stories and trauma and recovery and reassure them that we are really good and that we don't take away their babies and we don't harm them. And so they get that wisdom and they get to connect with each other. And then, if they're still traumatized, they get to be left alone other than staff that obviously keeps them fed, watered, cleaned, and groomed. And if they really transition and they love people, then when and if they choose, they get to pay it forward and to be cow hug therapists to heal humanity. And it's not something that we impose on them. It's something that they choose if they want it.
And do some cows not ever recover, like emotionally?
There are cows that the only time they truly surrender to my embrace is on their deathbed.
Wow. Oh,
Just before they pass is the first time I get to touch them.
I mean, I guess it would be like humans though, right? I mean, and no matter what the level of trauma, some people heal and some don't.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Some of us heal fast. Some of us heal slow. Some of us don't heal at all. Some of us hold on to resentments, and some of us can let it go and trust again. I mean, it's the same for these animals. The younger ones tend to heal faster than the adults. And then among the adults, it just depends on how much trauma they've gone through and how much contact they've had with humans, because the less amount of contact they've had with humans, the more neglect. The more contact with humans, the more abuse they've had. So it just depends on what they've gone through.
And that's pretty much all your animals across the board, right?
Yeah.
You have 200 in California or total?
A total across the 3 locations.
Which is a whole lot of animals. But you must have to turn away a lot of animals. There's so many traumatized animals.
Yeah, and that's a really hard part of our job because, we don't have enough land to save as many animals as need saving. So our phones are constantly ringing, and we very specifically take in animals that have nowhere else to go. So if they're adoptable at all, we help people with a referral list to find an adoption agency to rehome that animal. But if they're an animal that is absolutely unadoptable because of their physical situation or emotional situation, we really try as hard as we possibly can to make room.
Why Tennessee and Missouri? Because you've been in California forever. How did those happen?
One year, 8 years ago, almost 9 years ago, I don't know where this came from, but I told my husband that for my birthday coming up, I only wanted to rescue a cow. He said, okay. I mean,
it's what we
he
do.
Understands that that's things that I say. So he said, fine, and we thought we would, go to a local slaughterhouse or whatever, find a cow. But a few days later, he got a call from someone in Tennessee saying that there was a cow there that had lost a foot. His name was Dudley. And that she had called 200 sanctuaries across America and no one will help her. And she said, I know that you're in California, but can you at least give me some advice? He's going to go to slaughter and I'm trying to save him. So my husband, Jay, found a company that would make a prosthetic foot for him. And he found a bovine surgeon just 3 hours away in Knoxville, Tennessee. And he came to me one day and he said, happy birthday, we're going to Tennessee. We're rescuing a cow. And so we went to Tennessee and met Dudley and brought him to the hospital, and he had amputations and surgeries, and he had underwater treadmill therapy and acupuncture, and he got acclimated to the prosthetic. 4 or 5 months later, when it was time for him to be discharged, we toyed with the idea of bringing him all the way back to California. But first of all, that's a grueling trip. But second of all, we're in a desert. And the thought of those grains of sand going into the prosthetic, I'm like, that's not going to work. He needs to stay in Tennessee. Now, Jay and I had always wanted to go national and open more locations so that we can get in front of more people to open their hearts to animals. And by then, Dudley was world famous because his underwater treadmill therapy, his giving him treats, giving him peaches, his procedures, his surgeries, we did it all on Facebook Lives. So, I mean, hundreds of thousands of people were watching. And so we went to our board of directors and said, Dudley is very well supported, very, very well loved. Could we open a gentle barn for him in Tennessee? And the board said yes. So we opened a gentle barn for him in Knoxville so he could be close to the hospital. And people came from all over the world to meet him, people in wheelchairs, people with their own disabilities, people with missing arms, missing legs, war veterans, amputee coalitions. They all flooded in to see Dudley. And the thing is that Dudley had been through so many physical trials, but what was remarkable about him was his joy. He never complained. He never got depressed. He never felt lonely. He never compared himself to other animals like, oh, why can't I run like that? He accepted himself the way he was. He loved life. He wanted to sniff every flower, and he galloped across the pastures, and he wanted to rub up against every tree, and he loved every animal and every human being. Dudley ended up passing away 2 years later, which was really horrible. But so we moved that gentle barn from Knoxville to Nashville. So we are now in Nashville, Tennessee. We have a life-size mural of Dudley. We talk about Dudley every single day, and just every animal saved and every human healed is because of Dudley. And then St. Louis happened because, and you might have seen this because it was national news. There were 6 cows in a slaughterhouse in St. Louis that crashed through 3 fences and ran through the streets. You remember that?
Yes, I do.
So we're in California, we're watching that, and we're going, oh my God, this is terrible, right? And then eventually they end up getting rounded up and sent back to the slaughterhouse. But there was a small sect of the community that raised the freedom money and convinced the slaughterhouse to release the cows to a sanctuary. And the owner said, that's fine. And we're watching this going, okay, this is great. It's going to end fine. 4 days later, no sanctuary stepped up. So the owner of the slaughterhouse said, this is ridiculous. I'm done waiting. I'm going to process them in the morning. And then our phone started ringing with people begging, saying the money is right there. The owner will release them. Please don't let these cows die in vain. Please save them. Please save them. So Jay got on a red-eye flight and flew through the night, got there in time to stop their slaughter, transported them to the hospital so they could be treated for all their injuries and all that stuff, found a foster home to hold on to them for a minute until I could figure out where they would go next. So I went to Missouri, got out of the car, walked to the wood fence that was their pasture. The 5 cows were lined up in a row about 150 feet away watching me. And as soon as I was out of the car and at the fence, the leader, Chico, who was the one that crashed through 3 fences and led the boys through the streets, he told the boys to stay there. He walked 150 feet until he was in front of me. His energy was so strong and so powerful that I literally dropped to my knees and started weeping as he stared into my eyes. And I just kneeled there at his feet and cried for 20 minutes. And when I finally could compose myself, I looked back over my shoulder and said, Jay, they've come with a story to share with the world, and we have to help them. So we found a property. We opened our own GoFundMe, raised the money in 3 weeks, and now we have a gentle barn in St. Louis that is home to the St. Louis 6.
That is so cool. I love that you can say to Jay, hey, Jay, we need to open a whole nother sanctuary. And he's like, on it.
Yeah. He really did. And those cows, from being inside a slaughterhouse and then running through the streets with no one to help them, being sent back to the slaughterhouse, injuries, infections, all kinds of gross stuff. They went from traumatized, terrified, sick animals to now brilliant cow hug therapists. People can snuggle with them. They wrap their necks around them. They lay with people. They're brilliant, the work that they're doing in St. Louis.
And I'm sure every single person who comes through one of the 3 gentle barns, walks away with a much deeper knowing. One thing I've always kind of wondered a lot about is I think people who spend a lot of time with animals, and you spend a whole lot of time with animals, there's just this knowing that, like, yeah, it's all energy and they're telling us everything and they communicate through all the other ways, but also they're so much more in tune to their own energy, right? And our energy. But as a bigger world of just human beings who don't have time for anything, like the bigger, more mainstream world kind of writes all this off as soft and weird and kooky. And it's so crazy because this is kind of life, right? Of like why we're here and the whole existence. They're here to teach us all about that stuff. Like this is what it is. Yet in the bigger picture, people are like, yeah, that's nuts. Do you see that changing at all? Like, I mean, I'm sure you're so in it, it's harder to gauge. Or I guess you probably don't care as much either about like what the bigger world thinks. But like from the beginning till now, in that sense of like, this is it, right? Yet, why is it so hard to get this message kind of in the bigger scope of the world?
Well, so I have a lot of things to say about that. First of all, I care very deeply what the world thinks because I'm trying to change their thinking, right? I'm trying to go, guys, like there is so much more than to life, to other animals, to ourselves than we even realize. Like we have to start waking up. We are so far removed from who we are supposed to be, the connections we're supposed to have, and our part that we play in this world that we can't help but suffer. And I think that we're on the top of the precipice where we are so much in pain right now that the only thing we can do to find our way back to ourselves is to find our way back to nature, to animals, and to our own intuition. So our medical advances, yeah, they've helped some, but not completely. Yes, our technical advances, they've helped some, but not completely. We are still miserable. We are still suffering. We are still lonely. We are still lost. We are still divorced from ourselves. If you look at every single solitary species on this planet, there are two things that they do that we don't. Number one, they all operate with intuition. We've all seen schools of fish where they move at the same exact time. There's not a leader that everybody's following. They're one mind, one being, and they're moving in tandem. It's because they're connected intuitively. Every species operates intuitively. We have been removed from that, whether it's from religion, whether it's because of school, whatever it is, whether it's because, oh, that doesn't exist. Whatever it is, we have been removed from that natural intuition that our Aboriginal and Native ancestors took as normal. So I think that that is hurting us, and we have to return back to our intuition. And then the other thing that every single animal species on this entire planet does that we don't is they make time to meditate. They make time for stillness and self-care. You know, if you look at cats that have to sleep 20 hours a day, if you look at cows or horses, it doesn't matter. Every single life form on this planet, they take time to sit in the stillness and to look inside themselves. That's how we find ourselves. And that's how we find our joy and our purpose and our destinies. And it's just laying in wait for all of us to discover. So I think there is a massive change that has to happen. It's a matter of survival.
Can anyone come visit you?
Yes.
Okay. How do they do that?
The Gentle Barn is open to the public on Sundays. On Saturdays and the rest of the week, we host private tours, school field trips, birthday parties. And then, of course, anyone can book a cow hug therapy session for healing, a horse therapy session for confidence and leadership skills, and a barnyard therapy to remember how to laugh and smile and have fun. So people can go to gentlebarn.org and find out information on all of that.
Ellie, I cannot wait. I'm definitely going to come to Gentle Barn because, yeah, it just sounds like magic. And so thank you. Thank you for today. And thank you for everything you do.
Well, thank you so much for having me and reading my story and inviting me on today. And thank you for everything you do to be the voice for animals and love animals.
To learn more about Ellie, to learn more about the Gentle Barn, and to visit the Gentle Barn, which I think everyone should, including myself, go to our website, speciesunite.com. We will have links to everything. We are on Facebook and Instagram at Species Unite. If you have a spare moment and could do us a favor, please subscribe, rate, review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. It really helps people find the show. And if you'd like to support the podcast, we'd greatly appreciate it. Go to our website, speciesunite.com, and click donate. I'd like to thank everyone at Species Unite, including Gary Knutson, Caitlin Pierce, Amy Jones, Paul Healy, Santina Polke, Ayana Peoples, Olivia Deming, and Anna Kalner, who wrote and performed today's music. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day.